Thank you. And let's jump into the time management. Now, I'll tell you, I would say time management is a myth, right? Time's just going along. It's really self-management and choice management, like choosing to show up here today, choosing to make a certain amount of calls or do a certain amount of open houses, or making the choice to set a date to have date night with your spouse, or pick your kids up from school one day a week so you can build that relationship with them. It's choice management. Now, I like creating the framework of what the optimal day should look like, but man, it's really hard to keep it all together. I guarantee if any of you get a text right now from a viable lead that says, hey, I just got to town, I know I'm already pre-qualified, and I'd like to view the $2 million property in 20 minutes, and you know it's vacant on lockbox, you might say, Greg, I gotta go, and get the recording later. That's a good choice. But when it's, hey, I'm gonna, look at social media, or I'm gonna call my buddy who I got to catch up with to see how his bachelor party was over the weekend, like that's not a good choice during the day. I need to call some leads. So it's, where is our choice management along with our structure of our day and time management? Now, where this came from, I'm going to share with you today, is back in 2008, I was a personal assistant to a top producer, and we were working ridiculous hours. I mean, I remember one day on a Friday, he's like, hey, G, let's get out of here. It's like 3:00 in the afternoon. And I'm like, bro, I got so much stuff to do. I'm probably coming in tomorrow. And he goes, nah, dude, the work will be here, man. Just finish the priority stuff and drop the pen and let's get out of here. The work will be here tomorrow. And I'm like, all right, man. So I finished my stuff, drop the pen, we walk out the door, and literally I open it up, and like I felt like a vampire. Like I'm like squinting my eyes. I'm like, oh my God, it's so bright out, bro. Like I turned to him and I said, JB, when's the last time we left when the sun was up? And he's like, dude, I don't remember. And those were just our schedules and our times. Now, fast forward, he actually passed away in an ATV accident a couple months later, and I started on my own here at Nova. So that's where the 15 years comes from. And I was starting from scratch. This was during the crash because it was 2008. I'm literally just chasing realtors, builders, REO accounts, short sales. I mean, I'm just getting after it. And I'm working 80, 85 hours a week. My son had just been born. He's 14 going on 15 in October. We were, I think I'm just being the provider and working mad hours. And I come home and my wife's like, look, you gotta fix this. Can you go work for like Wells Fargo where they close at 5:00? She said, I feel like a single mother. And I was like, like I just started so deflated and defeated. So I called my coach that day. I'm like leaving the house and I'm like, bro, this just happened. He goes, dude, I told you were going to burn out. I go, dude, I'm not burning out. He goes, no, but your relationship is. You need to go hire people. So I quickly interviewed, hired a couple people, dropped my hours by about 20. So then I was working like 55, 60-ish, and then going through the motions. And I literally was able to then compact and constrict time. I was able to learn delegation. I say time management, but really choice management. I was able to have firm stop times. And what's funny is I worked less hours. I was saying no to more stuff. And my business literally doubled year after year after year after year up through about 2014. And then it's hard to double when you're doing so much business. It was just steady growth from there. And it was all because of the stuff that I'll share with you today, which is just a framework. It's not like, hey, here's the magic recipe, but here's the framework for how we all can manage our days to get more out of it, but also to minimize and do the important things. So I'll take you through this PowerPoint and I'll share this with you so you have it afterwards. So this just talks about, again, time management honestly is just a myth. Like I fight that all the time because I can't, like the last 13 minutes are just gone. I can't get them back and there's nothing I can do about it, but I can choose what I'm doing during that time. And I can choose to act a little quicker. I can choose what I am saying yes to, what I'm saying no to in a respectful way. And I have to be crystal clear on my vision in order to make the proper choices that's in alignment. And so I'll take you through, we all understand some of these things, but sometimes we needed the repeated message of time is a commodity. It's just like money. It is an asset. It just keeps going by and I can't get back any time. And think about it for you that are parents or even have parents that are, you know, like mine are in their mid 70s. Like, I just know, I don't know how much longer I have with them, but I know that all the time I have with them is super precious. So on the days that I'm like, oh, I'm so busy, I didn't call my parents today, like I feel horrible because I'm like, there's going to be a day where I'm like, I wanted to call them and they're not going to be there. And so all these things, I just know, like, everything just has an expiration date. And so what am I doing to make the most of it now? And whether we're talking personal, professional, or financial, and we'll get into those designations, that I'm making the proper choices all the time. So I always say, manage your time like you would your money. Like, we look at our bank accounts, sometimes it's overdraft. For those of you who have been with me a long time, I'm all about accumulating wealth. And that starts with knowing where your money is, working on a budget. The last class we did was all about budgeting. We spent about 30 minutes just talking about money. And all it was to be able to make sure you're actually looking at it. Just paying attention to it will help you. Well, that's what we're doing today. We're just going to pay attention to our money, and rushing around to things is not being productive. I think all of you have had those days where you're done heading home and you're exhausted, but you look back and go, man, I feel like I didn't really accomplish much. But then there's other days where you go home and you're still have a lot of energy and you feel like you accomplished a lot. That's the goal today, is to figure out what are those things that I need to do to have more of those days. And look, you're never going to be at 100%. I always say you just need more W's than L's. Just like in our playoff series, it's okay that they lost the other night. We just need 4 wins to finish the whole series. It's okay to have 3 losses. Now that's going to happen. You're going to have weeks where you're like, man, my Monday and Tuesday were great. My Wednesday went off the rails. Thursday was better. Friday was okay. Okay. How do I just improve a little bit next week to have 4 out of 5 or 3 out of 5? How do I win the mornings so it sets me up for a better day? And one of the biggest questions to think about in regards to self-awareness is, what do I need to stop doing? Do I need to stop staying up late? I talked to 2 people today. One is like, man, I get engrossed in this book and I can't put it down. And then I'm really tired. I fall asleep in bed at like 12:30, 1 o'clock. And I'm like, well, what does your morning look like after that? And they're like, dude, I'm tired. I'm not saying don't read, but there needs to be a stop point of, I'm going to stop at this time so I can get a good night's sleep. Because I always say your mornings start with a good night. So if you're, eat a clean dinner and you're just hanging out with the family, good conversations, maybe go for a little walk or something, and then maybe you watch a little TV or do a little reading, but you're like done at a certain time. So you have a nice restful sleep. And then you wake up at the time you want to wake up and you get a little movement in, rehydrate, have a little morning routine. You're just setting yourself up for a more successful day than if you do like the opposite. Well, I'm binge watching Tulsa King. I fell asleep during that episode. I'm prime on this thing or whatever. And then you wake up groggy. You miss your workout, you skip it, you eat bagel and a coffee because you're in a rush, you get a sugar crash after that, and then how's your morning? You're just not setting yourself up. And I think in terms of sports a lot, because it's something that everyone can resonate with, is what do you think the players did last night? They're reviewing game film, they're script practicing, so to speak, they're eating a good meal. They woke up today, they have a great pre-game routine. Depending on what game start is, they have an exact, precise routine. They'll get in there and do some warm-ups, they'll stretch, they'll practice running those plays so that they can have a more successful outcome. Whereas the opposite, they go out clubbing last night, they're boozing it up, they sleep in, they don't go work out, they eat crap during the day. What's the game going to look like then? So how are we? The difference is their game days are a few days a week. Our game day is every single day. And that can honestly feel a little overwhelming and monotonous, but that's just what our days are like. And I often say this in my coaching is, you don't want just a Monday through Friday routine. You need a Saturday and Sunday, because that's either how you're showing up for yourself or yourself and your family if you have one. So do I want to be sluggish and tired and worn out on Saturday when that's the day that I have the whole day with the kids versus the week where I get a couple hours? Or do I want to be primed up just like it's a Monday going into the office on a Saturday where I'm able to show up big for the kids? So we talk about 2 different things. What's the difference between pressure versus stress? So pressure is the amount of force being placed on you, like the phone calls coming in, the emails, interruptions, team meetings, things like that. Stress is physiological or biological. Like, what are those physical pressures that get to you and that we allow to, and that we're not putting barriers in place to get rid of? And what are those things? Like, everyone has different stuff that they do to manage stress. Like for me, one thing is eating good, because if I don't eat good, I have resentment for what I just ate. I physiologically and biologically just don't feel good and clouded my brain and gets me even more stressed out. The other thing I do is just working out. Like, I work out. I listen to podcasts that are in books that are motivating, inspiring, good stories, things like that. If I'm just going to watch, Desperate Housewives or Housewives of Beverly Hills or some drama show, then what's that going to do for me is it brings up drama, and then I'm attaching, like, people just vibe with the emotion. You ever been in a theater where like there's something stressful happening and you feel it, like your palms get a little clammy, you get a little tension, like that's the goal of the movie, is to elicit a feeling. It's the same with some of those reality shows. They want to elicit that feeling. And those aren't always good feelings, especially in a drama show, because they're trying to hook you with the fear or the angst. And so what are you consuming and who are you surrounding yourself with? And look, you've heard all this stuff before. Like, you're the sum of the 5 people you hang around. Like, if I hang around with people that, are in a good mood, run great businesses, have more money than me, have a better business than me, have a bigger business than me, have a successful marriage, great relationship with their kids, then I'm not saying I'm going to be identical to them, but I'm more apt to pick up those good qualities and habits versus let me hang out with my boys that are sleeping in, beer belly, not going to the gym, eat like crap, go to the clubs, go to the bars. Like, so let me do that. They don't read books. They're not successful. They're in some hourly job making $15 an hour. I mean, you see I always find duality and stuff. So I want to be more on this side, and that will help me to be more successful and make it a little easier. So number one is we have to be self-aware. And this, whether we're talking about budgeting money, I need to be aware of my money. I need to know where all my money is. I need to know the money that's coming in, the money that's going out, especially in our business. Some months you have big months where you're closing a $2 million deal, and then you goose egg 3 months in a row. Well, you hope that you had good savings and spending and budgeting habits when you made the 2 million, so that those 3 other months is okay, because I can prospect and be okay, because I feel that I don't feel the financial angst of not having the money, because I was good with preserving what I got. And then I keep stacking that up. And I know everywhere where the money's going. So I'm self-aware, and then having your goals and having your choices. So with self-awareness, something to do would be to look at your calendar yesterday, or if you don't use a calendar, just figure out, what did you do like this morning? It's 1:22. What was your morning like? What did you do? What could you have done a little bit? Pat Riley, when he coached the Lakers, he was like, if I can just get the team 1% better a year, what will it look like in 5 seasons? If we got 1% better a month or a day or each practice, what would that look like? So if I look back yesterday and go, man, I made, my calls were too long. I didn't ask for the business on every call I made. I didn't call these 3 people that I really should have followed up on. I waited another day. Like, what was it? And not beating yourself up for it. It's not you. It's just the behavior. The choices were wrong. How can I then make better choices tomorrow? How do I create a better habit for tomorrow? And even if I come off a little bit tomorrow or the next day, it's okay. But if next month I'm 1% better, I'm making a few more better choices during the day, what will the outcome look like in 6 months, in a year? What will the you look like next year? And this is personal, professional, and financial. What did I do? What did I eat good or not eat good? What was my activity level like? What were my conversations with people? Was I short? Was I defensive? Was I emotional? Or did I have good emotional intelligence? I was present in the moment. I had a guy yesterday, my CFO, he's going over my P&L for the company, right? And he's like, dude, I've known you since September and you're just so hard to read. And I go, why is that? He goes, because you're just not, it's like a poker face. I said, good. That's how I want to be. I don't want him to read my emotions. I want to be, like be emotional, but don't show your emotions all the time, especially in certain situations, like when you're trying to negotiate with somebody, or whatever. Is how do you become self-aware of your own thought process in the moment, right? Like you're more the thoughts than you are the actions. The thoughts happen first. And so being self-aware is a huge one. The other one is our goals, right? And I always say you need a playbook for the perfect day. And I'm going to share with you at the end of this how that looks. And again, the playbook is more to me like a task list. And I think, let me see here. Hang on. I've been through quite a few planners in my day trying to figure out what works for me because I think everybody's different. One of them is Grant Cardone has a 10X planner. And his thing literally is like a scheduler for the day, like the times. What are you doing during these time blocks? And then on the other page, it says, write your goals, a quote of the day. What are your targets? What were your successes? And then a spot to rewrite your goals. And Grant always said, because I coached for Grant since 2017, he always says, why would you write your goals down twice? He goes, you write them down if something goes wrong during your day or you need to get back on track. So you have a deal, maybe you blow a listing or blow a buyer consult, or I lose a deal for rate or something, and Binzer goes bad and I got to go look for more houses or whatever. And here, and all these thoughts are coming in. And he's like, just call it time out and rewrite your goals down, because that will get you back on track and committed to your vision to make sure that from that point forward in the day to finish the day, you're going to be making choices in alignment to your goals, because your goals you wrote at 6, 7, 8 in the morning, that law of diminishing intent, it just diminishes over time. So you got to re-engage your brain. So I thought that was pretty cool. The other one is Andy Frisella. He has a cool podcast. It's free. The price of the podcast is actually that you share it. But he puts out a thing called the Power List, and I'll find the podcast and send it to you guys. But his thing is literally every day it looks like this. And he makes a power list of the 5 things you want to accomplish. It doesn't say like, at 9 a.m. I do this, at 11 I do this. It just says, hey, here's the 5 things I need to do today. I need to, I need to call all the people that closed in April of 2022 and do a CMA for every one of them. That could be on your list today. That could be on your list next week. I don't know, but it's just an item that's on your list to accomplish that day. So he puts his top 5, and then at the bottom, currently reading. So he has a part on here where he's like, you're currently reading something. His big thing is 10 pages of a book. But if you use these little tactics, rather than saying, I'm going to be handcuffed to this 9 to 5 or 8 to 7 schedule that you have, it's just, we don't work well in handcuffs. We're too all over the place. And that's why you're good in real estate and I'm good at mortgages, is we're like squirrel. What's the nastiest combination though, is a squirrel that then has laser focus for a certain period of time, not all day, just laser focus for, I need 30 minutes to make these calls. I need 1 hour. I'm going to do these 5 CMAs for all the closing I did last April, and I'm going to call them all and I send them. Or I'm going to send those CMAs to Jackie and say, hey, can you print this and put some stuff and bind it really nice for me? And then I'm going to hand deliver it to my clients of last year. And then I'm going to ask them if they have any friends or family members that would like the same thing. And that could be on my task list of something to do, not, hey, from 9:30 to 10:30, you're going to do this thing. It's just on the task list to do. Now, I like putting the list in the calendar. So I'll put in there, hey, 10:30, I'm doing this thing. But if something comes up, or you got to run off to an appointment or take an important call, or life just happens, it's okay. You have the wherewithal to not just click dismiss in the calendar. You then go reschedule for later today. You move it. You can replace something. You can never erase something, because it was put in the calendar with purpose, because the calendar is a direct reflection of the goals that of your ultimate vision of what you want your business to look like. And so that's the goals. And then the last part we talk about is choices. Now, a couple of things when we think about like batching is let's say you're going to make, I don't know, 30 outbound calls today. You know, like I'm going to call my past clients. I'm going to call my hot leads. I'm going to call some VIPs like my financial planner, CPA, right? CPAs are going to be done today, so they can take like a week off and then they'll be back in business. But if I called my CPA and said, hey, Bill, my guy's name's Bill. Hey, Bill, it's Greg. How was tax season, man? How's everything going? How was Hawaii? My guys always take 10 days after to go to Hawaii. For like 20 years, he's done this. And I said, hey, cool, man. Hey, I want to take you out to lunch. And then I say, hey, is there anything I need to do to tax plan better for next year? And tell him, cool. Hey, how many returns did you do, man? 180, 120, whatever the number is. Cool. Any of those people need some planning, like they need to buy some houses and have some cost segregation or accelerated depreciation or anything? Like I'm fishing for referrals from my guy, but that needs to be me batching time to call certain people. I have what I call theme days. So on Monday, I call my realtors. On Tuesday, it's Tuesday update day. On Wednesdays, I call my pre-calls. There's literally a formula, and we do it with the core for realtors too. It's slightly different, but they batch their time to do that. Making the to-do list, or what I call the get it done list, needs to be every day. My martial arts teacher, I used to run a martial arts school. He had a yellow page of paper, like that old school yellow pad, and he'd put the date on the top. He'd write down the things he had to do. It'd be like, 1 through 5, 1 through 12, whatever. And then he would cross them out throughout the day as he was going through, like clean this, order that, do this, update that, whatever. And then he would, at the end of the day, he would tear it off and he would write down what he didn't do that day to rewrite it. He had a fresh thing ready for the next day. And my physics teacher in college used to say, hey, one of the best things you could do is write the stuff down that you need to do the next day, that evening. That way it just comes off of your brain and you can get a better night's sleep. Rather than you're all going to sleep and you're thinking, I got to do this tomorrow. I got to do this tomorrow. I'll remember that. I'll remember that. Rather than you just write it all out and then you're ready for the next day. And then creating internal deadlines. So I'm big on this, where if it's, hey, I'm going to put together this, I'm going to update my listing presentation. I'm going to put in some testimonials. I'm going to update my photo. I'm going to put in a little video, whatever. But you said, I want to do it by the end of April. Okay, we'll put an internal deadline that you're going to have it by April 22nd. Have an internal deadline for stuff. Or if the client says, yeah, if you could get that to me by Friday, that would be awesome. And you're like, great. And you're like, dude, by Wednesday night, I'm going to have that done no matter what. Create internal deadlines, almost, contests. I find that salespeople are highly competitive. And so doing like a little contest with yourself, a competition of, I bet I can beat that. I don't know if anyone does this, but every time I get in the car and I put in a destination, it says, 15 minutes and I play beat the clock. I go, can I make it in 14? And so that's me. I'm just super competitive. I compete with myself. Now, not that doesn't mean get into an accident. It doesn't mean text and drive. It just means I just know that map is not meant for, it's meant for like mediocre average drivers. And I'm just going to beat that little clock. All right. A lot of you understand the 80-20 rule, but this is good to just, again, remind us that 80% of your business, your closings, actually comes from 20% of your clientele. At 20%, like your referral business is coming from a small portion, but it makes up such a large amount of our business. So why am I focusing on the 80% of these people? And I'm not saying not focus, but we put too much focus over here on the 80 and not enough on the 20, because that would be way more efficient use of our time to do that. And then we think in terms of our time management is 20% of your actions will actually yield 80% of your results. And so looking back and saying, man, what did I actually do yesterday? What's on my docket today? What do I have on my to-do list? What's on my calendar? What's a project that I've been thinking about doing? And I don't know about you guys, but I used to have sticky notes. I would have a notes in my phone that says to-dos. I have one of those remarkable tablets, an iPad. I've got, various things to write stuff on. I've got notes on my pipeline report. I actually, if I show you my calendar, I have a printed calendar on my desk every day. And I write It's color coded, and I'll show you it on one of the slides, but I actually write on the side as things are going on today, I make little notes. So for me, it's how do I pool my notes together and keep them in one place? Because all I need to do is focus on the 20% that will yield me the 80%. I don't ignore the other 80, but this is, and again, you've heard these things before. It's just how do you apply it now to your business? And maybe now the message kind of lands a little better, right? Multitasking. We've all heard it. I think we all try to beat it. I'm not saying I don't multitask. I will say I'm more on purpose for task switching. Task switching means I'm all in on you guys right now. It's pretty easy because I'm the presenter. But when I'm on the call with somebody, I'm all in on the call because I want to make sure I'm looking for the opportunities to deepen that relationship, maybe ask for business. But then the second it's over, I get right on to the next thing and I'm all in on it. I don't know if you guys have this, but I got like 2 screens up, right? So if I have a screen over here that's got my emails and I'm in here doing a loan file and the little pop-ups are happening over here, or the pop-ups in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen happen and you get distracted by it. And what they say is it takes a minimum of 12 minutes to get back on track if you were distracted from a task. So if I multitask, meaning I'm in my loan file or I'm putting together a contract in zip forms, and all of a sudden I ding, and I look down at my phone because I see like 3 text messages come in. I go, well, I better check that. It could be important. And I go to grab it. Now, again, look, that could be your $2 million deal. So I'm not saying we're not doing it, but if I go to like engage in it and I go back to my writing a contract or whatever I'm doing, or researching to do a market analysis for an offer you're going to write or whatever, it literally takes your brain average is 12. So that means for some it's less and for some it's more, but that's a lot of time to get back in the full groove. I have a policy in my office. If you walk into my office or I walk in up to your office or your cube, that I stand there in this awkward silence while you finish whatever you're doing. So if Norma's sitting there writing with her pen and I walk in the office and I go, hey, Norma, did you get the appraisal ordered on Matt's deal? And she's like, puts her pen down. She's like, well, let me check for you, Greg. And she looks up the file. Yeah, it's been ordered. I go, thank you. And I leave. And now she's going, where was I again? She's got to reread. She's got to read her email, get back in a flow, and then finish it. So what did I do to her? I just derailed her for minutes. Do that enough times during the day, and she just lost 2 to 3 hours of productivity. But what if I walk in there and she's writing, she sees me out of the peripheral vision, and I know she sees me, so I just stand there. And then she finishes her thought. She finishes her email. She finishes what she's doing, and then she can pay full attention to me. And I go, hey, do you know if we got that appraisal order? She's like, let me check. And she checks, and then she's done, and then she moves on to her next task. No time lost, no time wasted. So I put that into place when this study came out, and what happened with productivity? It all went up. What happened to my annoyance level when someone would come in and interrupt me when I'm doing something? Hey, Greg, I'm like typing an email. I have this clicky keyboard, and they're like, and so they're clicking away and they're like, oh, hey, Greg, do you got a second? And I'm like, yeah. And how was my mood? Am I really engaged with them, or am I still thinking about the thought I was doing over here? I know this sounds weird, but this one little thing can save you a lot of time and aggravation, but also your team members, your TC, your spouse. I mean, it's the same thing. If I manage my interruptions, but I also manage their interruptions, we're both way more productive. So again, that goes into choices and putting things in place. Now let's talk about clutter. When I was a martial arts teacher, I had a lady, she was a feng shui lady, and I barely knew much about it, even though I was in the martial arts. And I said, hey, what's feng shui? If you were to summarize it, I'm teaching her like Tai Chi, moving meditation stuff, right? And she's like, well, I'll put it this way. She's like, it's a lot of energetics. It has to do with, when you were born and all this, astrological stuff. But she's like, I'll tell you in its simplest form, when everything is tidy, how do you feel? When you walk into she's like, do you live in an apartment or a condo or a house? I'm like, I'm in an apartment. I lived back in college. And she's like, well, when you walk in, it's like kind of a mess. Like, how do you feel versus the duality of it's super clean. And she's like, not clean like white gloves. She's just being organized. Like your books are stacked right. And you know, your kitchen table, your sink doesn't have a bunch of plates in it. Like, how's it feel? I'm like, oh, it feels really good. She's like, cool. What if it just felt that way all the time? What if when you woke up, you didn't have dishes in the sink and your counter was clean and you pulled into your garage, and as the thing opens up, you're like, wow, it looks like a model home. Versus now, I guarantee you open up your garage door and you're like, man, I know what I'm doing this weekend. I need to clean this place up. Even if it's like just tidying the stuff out, like there's a place for everything, right? The little counter. And that, what does your desk look like? And to take literally 3 minutes when you come in the morning or when you leave at night to tidy everything up. And I don't mean like, let me measure the book and make sure it's like perfectly centered on the table. I mean, like you have your calendar out, pens over there, your water's over there. You don't have junk. You consolidate your paperwork. It's in order. It just feels good. And when you take this to your car, your garage, your home, and your office, and all of your people, because how many times have you walked up into someone's office and you're like, how do you operate in this? And I guarantee like they're good because they use the bigger pile principle. Like, oh no, I know where everything, it's organized chaos for them, right? Well, no, for us, I'm like, well, what if I had all that stuff just organized? What would it look like? Like I have a stack of thank you notes on my desk right here. I've got my organizer. I've got all my stuff like is in a clipboard so I can easily grab it. I grab it, throw it in my backpack. I walk out the door. Like if I simplify those things and declutter, then I have less stress. I have more effectiveness and efficiency. It's easier just to find stuff. But overall, subconsciously, you all know what I mean. Your brain, it just feels better when everything's just organized. And again, you're not going to have W's every day. It's okay. But if the majority of, like when you leave tonight, your office or your home office setup, and you just tidy it up a little bit, let me know tomorrow how it feels when you start your day. I guarantee it's going to look a little better. And if you see, you guys look at a lot of properties. What's the difference when you walk into the house that's got a lot of clutter around, stuff on the shelves, like little kitty cats over here. I mean, little motif, little sculpture. And the ones that have like one book, one little metal bicycle, one little clock, like perfectly like a model home. It's why model homes are made the way they are. They're simplistic. Think about what could you do to simplify some of the areas that you work in. And again, you're in real estate, so people see your cars more often than mine, but I just grew up with a dad that liked a clean car. My car's always pretty clean. Even with 2 kids, people jump in my car and they're like, I have a Tesla with white seats. They're like, how's your car so clean? You have 2 kids. I'm like, I know, but it's like, I just clean it after they're out because then I feel better. If I let it pile up, even though you could kind of manage maybe, it still just piles up in your brain. So no, I spent a lot of time on that, but I think that's an important one because it's a feeling. All right, procrastination. This one's the killer. I look at things and there's a guy named David Allen. He wrote a book called Getting Things Done, GTD, Getting Things Done. He has a podcast too. You can probably find him on some YouTube, just listen to him. But he just talks about like, if it's a task that comes up that could be done in 2 minutes or less, just do it. Because if you pile up enough of those tasks, it's going to seem like a mountain versus, you're like, oh, I need to make that call, or I need to do that email, or shoot that text, or reply to that email. And I'm like, that email is going to take me like 30 seconds. I'm going to do it and be done and it's gone. Versus, oh, that one's going to take, I'm going to need to look that up. I'm going to have to ask my underwriter a question. I'm going to have to involve some people. So that one I'm going to delay to some place else, maybe later in the day. Maybe you put it as a task from your Outlook or Gmail to task yourself at 3 o'clock today to do it. So it pops up and you're like, all right, I have the time to do it. So you've specifically put that task in place. Maybe you delegate it. So if there's someone that you can delegate it to, great, then you need to delegate it. And that could be a less than a 2-minute task, right? push that over to her and say, hey, can you review this file, get with the underwriter and let me know what you think by 3:30 or so? Please send. Now I delegated it. Or like I just said, you delayed it, or you just did it because it's less than 2 minutes, or you delete it because it's something that you don't even need to do. So that's the 4 Ds of time management by David Allen. But one of the biggest things is the procrastination. Things build up over time, right? Like, oh, I need to do that thing. I need to do that thing. And what happens is, and I'll skip a slide down here where it says eat the frog. If you don't do the hardest thing first, or at least earliest in the day, it just sits on your brain, right? Like, so I get a call and some borrower that's mad about something. And I'm like, okay, I need to make that call. Dude, I'm more like, just give me the phone number. And I get my phone out and say, I'll call him right now. Because I know the weight that puts on the back of my head for all the subsequent activities I'm doing until I make that call. So eat the frog just means do the hardest, ugliest thing you've got to do first thing that it comes up. So maybe it's first thing in the morning because at night you're doing your to-do list. You're like, oh man, I really need to do that thing. I got to call that person. I got to move that thing. It's not going to be a fun call. I'm going to be on hold for a while. I can't delegate it, but I'm just going to be thinking about it all day long. So I better knock it out early. So it's a simple concept, but that's something that I just want you to think about. The other thing I'll skip to is this. When you're thinking about your choices, and you've probably seen this grid in other fashions, but if something is important and has a very short time constraint, then that's a number one. Like I probably need to prioritize that and do it now. If it's not very important, but still has to be done soon, then I need to prioritize it, but it's still not as urgent as if it was super important and due. Now, if it's important, but that the deadline's so far out, then it's not as important as these two. And the worst of them all is it's not important and it's not due. Maybe I'm just doing someone a favor and they're like, hey, can you just get that for me? No big rush, not really important to me. You're like, okay. And it's not. So I could push it to Friday. Oh, I have a lot of catch up time on Friday. I'll just put it there. Not a priority. But how can you make these decisions in an instant? Because what usually happens is Matt comes to me and says, hey, can you do this for me? And, you're just a nice person. And you're like, yeah, man, I got you. Yet it was a number 4. Compared to if you looked at your to-do list that you wrote the night before, you would have found some 1s, 2s, and 3s in there that would have gone before the 4. But we said yes to the 4, maybe because it was easier, maybe because I'm more of a people pleaser. Maybe I just wanted to help out Matt. I need to look down at my list and say, is that a 1, 2, a 3, or a 4? And then manage your choices appropriately. And as you do this, it's literally like a muscle. It's a muscle that you're working on all the time, that it's a choice muscle. So if I'm able to do the 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm doing my task list and I'm able to make those choices more in the moment, then what's going to happen in a month or two as things are coming my way, or I'm writing those lists out, it's automatic. It is automatic that you're going to knock those out of the park. I'm not saying that some stuff's not going to get jumbled up some from time to time, but if the majority of the time you're sitting there like, all right, what's the deadline? And is this super important? Like real quick, what is it? Okay. Is it not that important, but it is due soon? Okay. Where do I put that? I'm going to do this before that. And you're literally just moving stuff around like a shell game almost as to how you're implementing and executing on your plan every day. And by plan, I interject like plan, calendar, task list. Those are all the same to me. Those are all decisions that you need to make. And most of them are made in the moment. Most of them are in the moment. Like you're going to get done here and you're going to go into react mode because I got to look at my texts. I got to look at my emails before I look at my to-do list, because that stuff that's coming in, the text comes through as Norma, there's a problem on 123 Maple Street. Donovan, we have a problem with the escrow on Pine Lane. Okay, well, I can't just go to my to-do list and ignore my text messages. I literally have to go to my text, go, okay. And then I look at it and go, do I need to deal with that? Or do I need to forward that and delegate it to my transaction coordinator? Or do I need to deal with that? Well, if I need to deal with it, I'm picking up the phone and calling them right now before I go to my next thing. But that was a combination of, I looked at the priority items first, email, text, then I had to make a decision. Then I got to look at my task list and my calendar. Because if the calendar says get in your car and drive to your kid's school to pick them up, you're making the call while you're driving to the kid's school. So you can't just go blind and go, Greg told me to do the priority thing, and I just did the call because it came in and it's a problem on my file. Okay. But you still got to be aware of all the stuff. So I know it's a lot, right? It's literally like juggling, but some of the balls you're juggling are like glass. Like your family is the glass one that you're always like, that's number one priority for all of us. So something happens with the family, all the other balls can drop. Something happens with the business, I can pick that ball back up. The family one cannot get picked up. So which one are you paying the most attention to and treating like it's the glass ball? Okay, so that grid, though, that I think is a super important one when we come to, again, choices. So when we talk about, I always say that you got to insulate yourself, right? And try not to waste time. And sometimes, like, this is more for if you have teams. If, like, my team's really good about managing my time, like, they don't need to interrupt me, and they interrupt me only when it's necessary. And when they do it in such a manner that it's not taking me off track. So, they've gone through all the proper channels before coming to me. When they come to me, they don't just barge in the door and start talking. They wait for their moment, and then we talk about it. It's usually a coaching opportunity of how they can handle it the next time. That way, every day that goes by, every situation that comes up, they're getting better and better and sharper and sharper and sharper to limit the interruptions to me. But in the beginning, when they were brand new to the team, there's a lot of interruptions, a lot of coaching moments, but then those diminish over time so that they can take on more and more responsibility, which is ultimately what every employee wants. They want more and more responsibility. This is that law of diminishing intent we talked about before, which says, hey, I intend to do this thing, but as time goes by, the emotions start to wear off. It's no different than you go to buy something. So you're walking through the mall and you're like, oh my gosh, I like those shoes or that purse or that outfit or that shirt or that car or whatever. And the emotions are high. That's why in sales, they always want to close when there's some buying signals, because they don't want the law of diminishing intent to happen, because tomorrow you might go, yeah, I'm just going to renew my lease. Yeah, I'm good with the purse. The salesperson's job is to keep your emotions high and get you to close right there. Like, oh no, hey, we'll just do a layaway. Why don't you take it and come bring payments? Hey, just swipe the card. We have a free promotion, 0% interest. It doesn't matter if you forgot your purse in the car. It's okay. Don't you have Apple Pay on your phone? Come on, let's just swipe right here, because they know that is high. Well, for us, it's that law of diminishing intent is, what did you intend to do today? And you need to continue to revisit your task list, to-do list, and calendar to make sure you're on track and that your emotions are high, that you want to do those things. That's why that writing of the goals daily, if not multiple times a day, it keeps your emotions up, because you're like, no, I want to close 5 closings a month. I need to make those calls. In order to do that, I will make those calls. Whereas if I stay away from the goal and I look up at the end of the year and I'm like, oh man, I didn't close my average of 5. Well, I'll just shoot for it in 2024. It's not a good plan. It's like every day you're looking at it. Am I on track? Am I doing the activity? That way the intent never diminishes, because you're constantly reminding yourself of your target and what you want to do. Now, here's a sample. And again, this is right out of our, and I'll send this sheet blank to you. I'll send this and I'll send one blank to you, of to structure your day in some sort of a framework. Now, notice there's a lot of red time down here, right? Like in the morning, I want to plan out my day, like go to the gym, do some workout, drop the kids at school, something like that, personal stuff. And then you're going to plan your day, like literally like rewrite your to-do list, double check it, check the calendar. What do I need to do? Cool. Team meeting could be with yourself. If you're solo, could be with your TC, could be with your other agents. There's something like that. Then I'm returning all my calls and emails, kind of getting the day going. And then down below here is, some sort of, here's my call times, because the phone is the number one leveraged activity. And if you can knock out 10, 15, 20 calls early on, you can literally win the day by noon by just having this stuff in place. And then I can react to the rest of the day. The buyer consult, the buyer that needs to see me, the buyer that wants to see 8 homes, the listing appointment that came up, the listing kit you need to do, the CMA you need to work up. We're in a very reactionary business. So what I say is be super proactive in the morning, because once the day starts getting away, you're in react mode. It's really hard to push pause on the day. And a lot of stuff comes in that early afternoon, mid-afternoon, late afternoon time frame that, again, time's just running out. But if stuff comes up in the morning around 11 o'clock while I'm hammering the phones, it's okay because I've got like 6 hours to deal with it. When it comes up at 3 o'clock, I only have a couple hours to deal with it. So I have to react fast and put other stuff on hold. I'm reacting. So be proactive as much as possible. And that's why I say, your morning start with your night. Having a good night routine keeps me up nice and fresh in the morning so that I can be very proactive in the morning, high energy level. I'm making the calls. It's okay when people say no. I have a very high willpower versus the afternoon, little sluggish. It's after lunch. I've already worked 6 to 8 hours, depending on what time you woke up in the morning. And now you're like, and you hear no, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to be okay with that. But you don't have the energy to deal with it as you would have at 11:30 in the morning. There's a cool book that's called the One Thing. It was a Gary Keller, Jay Papasan book. And he talked about, there was a study done at prisons during parole. And if I can find an excerpt from it, I'll send it to you. But it talked about, they did studies of when parolees would be up for parole, and the success rate of saying, yes, approved your parole was high right before lunch. It was like that mid-morning till about 11:30. Once it was after lunch, there was a sharp decrease in the yeses because everyone was tired. They've already worked the morning. They've been doing people, like trying to elicit paroles and listening to people plead their cases, highly emotional. And then they go to have lunch. And even if they ate good, it didn't matter. Your body's still going to process it and digest it. And so, but at the end of the day, it was like a 20% success rate after lunch. So you were hoping that you were the before lunch crowd. But the parolees never understood that. They were just going up at their time. And I guess you would just hope that you were in the success zone. But think about that in your life, how your willpower is on high before the lunchtime. So I want to do those harder things, those important prospecting things early in the morning, knowing that even if I eat a clean lunch, my willpower is decreased in the afternoon. And now I'm just dealing with whatever comes in. And I've gotten the harder, more dollar productive future business stuff out of the way. So that's the goal of this one here, is constructing that time. And I'm happy to go over individually what that would look for you all. But this all should make sense in regards to just thematically, what would the framework of your day look like? So here's the last couple of slides. Some of the keys is having a schedule, like building something like this in your calendar that is recurring, that again, might move. Like I have a team meeting that's at 9 o'clock every day. Sometimes it goes to 8:30. Sometimes I have to, like this Monday, I had a meeting at 9 on Zoom. So I missed the 9 a.m. branch meeting, but I jumped in at 9:30 for the team meeting. Like stuff just gets moved around, and remember, replaced, never erased. The other thing was having that task list, get it done list. I don't care if it's a yellow pad. I don't care if it's some Trello on your app of your computer, if it's the notes on your phone, if it's one of these, books. But there's a power list of things that you're like, I will get those things done. And whatever's not, it was a non-priority, it was a number 4 or a number 3 that just got punted. But the ones that were due soon are probably those higher priority ones that are categorized on your list every single day. The writing out your stop list, this is more of a right now thing, is just go back the last couple of days and think, hey, what did I do that just got me off track? Did I, like, for example, I'll jump in social media and I'll look for my messages that are coming through, because people will message on my posts and on my Instagram and DM me. I had one yesterday DM'd and said, hey, I'm looking to refi my house, getting a divorce. And so I have to go in there and look at the DMs. Well, I'm guilty of then going, let's just look at the feed real quick. And I start and like, oh, let's see what Donovan's doing today. Let's see what Norma's doing today. What's Matt doing today? What's Kit doing today? Right. I'm just seeing, man, like a little bit, maybe a comment, but man, 20 minutes later, I'm like, whoa, I got stuck in there. And so I have to have a hard stop in my own head of, okay, I'm going to do my DMs and my comments, and then I'm out. I can't allow myself to do the feed. Now, if there's going to be structured time to go in and check the feed for stuff, like it's part of your world, you're going to go look at what are your past clients doing and things like that, fine. But have it blocked, but have a clock, hey, so-and-so, Siri or Alexa, set timer for 20 minutes. And then all of a sudden your timer goes off in 20 minutes. You're like, whoa, that didn't feel like 20 minutes, but you had a stop time to get out. The energy drill is sometimes you got to push pause and say, man, where's my energy right now? Do I need to do a Tony Robbins pattern interrupt? Do I need to just like jump around? Do I need to do 10 push-ups? Do I need to walk around my building and get some fresh air and vitamin D right now? Because I guarantee if all of us hang up after this Zoom and go out and just get some fresh air, take like 5 deep breaths, then come in and look at my texts, my emails, and my to-do list and my calendar and go, okay, you're just going to end the day with more energy than you would if you just shut off the Zoom and just go right into some other screen. So there needs to be strategic breaks to check an energy level. Like just check your energy. Am I a 1 or a 5 right now? Getting organized and declutter, dude, you can do that today. When you drive into your garage today, you can go, all right, I need to do that project this weekend. You also may need to clean out the car. You may need to zip by the car wash, get the car detailed. It just feels better after. I love Thursdays because my housekeeper comes on Thursday. My wife loves Thursday. I come home and the house is just so clean. I'm like, I just feel better Thursday when I go home. I also feel better on the weekends that we clean out the garage. We get hey, let's have a little yard sale. Let's have the kids earn some money. Let's clean up the garage. It just feels better driving in. Using your team and outsourcing as much as you can. There's a lot of AI. I know Jackie with Taylor and Lance, they know a lot about different software programs you can use. I mentioned a bunch. Outsourcing is, as you can see on the screen here, Fiverr, Calendly to book appointments. Umail is something that manages my voicemails, that transcribe them into emails. So I see them in an email, so does my whole team. And it texts the person that I'm on the other line and says, I will call them right back. It's like $250 for the year. SaneBox organizes my emails as they're coming in and puts them in different folders so I can easily go in and check different folders. Those are leveraged technology that allow me to not have human capital doing that. I also have a full-time admin assistant that's watching my emails. So when you get to that level, that's just an extra couple hours of my day that I literally only have flagged emails that I need to deal with. She does with everything else. That was years in the making, but once I invested in that, that was a huge time saver. The last thing that I'll share, one is I'm happy to, this is my personal cell phone number, so that's my iPhone. You can text me. I am happy to go through an exercise with you to build your personal playbook, go over personal, professional, and financial goals. And then what's the play for the next 90 days to help you stay on target with those things that we put in place or that you want to put in place. If you want to follow some of my content, that's my Instagram, and I'll send you this PowerPoint afterwards too. And then last is if you take your phone and screenshot this little QR code, this is a survey for today. So just take a little screenshot or just open up your camera, push the little link. It's going to take you to a Google form. All I want is your feedback. What'd you think about the class? What other content would you like to see? And who else do you think would like this content? Because obviously this is for anybody. This is for a business owner. This is for my kids. This is for real estate. This is for loan officers, for our title partners. I mean, this is something that a lot of us need help with. And again, it's not so much time management, it's our own choice management, and that we have a list of the things that we want to do that are in alignment with our personal, professional, and financial goals, but then we're executing on a very high level. And look, there's plenty of days where I pick number 4 instead of number 1. I picked number 3 instead of number 1. Or I going through high school, I always thought like, man, I just work great under pressure. No, dude, you procrastinate to the last minute and then would just slide into home every single time. You would have been way more successful if you had managed the 1, 2, 3, 4, and I would have had a much less stressful and probably not taken 8 years to graduate ASU. And no, I'm not a doctor. If I had done the right task and time management. So, all right, if there's any questions, I'm happy to field them. Jackie, was that helpful for you?
Yeah, it was. I mean, look at the back of my desk is all cluttered, so can't wait to clean that up. Thank you, Greg. That was awesome.
You're welcome. And like I said, you all understand the feeling, right? You walk in your office when it's freshly cleaned or you clean it, or, I mean, look, Matt's got a very organized thing back there, but imagine if he had a bunch of
Can't see below the level though. You're not seeing everything down here though.
It's the Zoom. Well, and that's the thing, right? So how much, if you take, again, 5 minutes before I leave my home office, my work office, whatever, and do that, what's it look like tomorrow when you walk in the office? It just feels better. So, all right, guys, I'll send the follow-up. Don't forget to click in the chat for the Eventbrite link. We'll also send it in the follow-up for the Mortgage Town Hall next week. That one's live. And I'll send all the collateral stuff that we talked about in here.
You can send the link to the call as well, I think, right? That would be amazing because that would be great to go back through it again.
Cool, absolutely. Will do.
Thank you very much. Great
You're
call.
welcome,
Great topic. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank
Enjoy the
you
rest of your day.
all. Hope to see you at the town hall.
Yes.
Bye.
Bye, Norma.
Bye.